Okay, so welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tony, with Joe and
Joe and Kirk.
With Kleymb Out podcast, and obviously we got Sarah. I'm Tony, and you guys didn't know this, right? And by the way, we're doing this on Saturday,
Yeah.
right? So thank you guys both for coming out. But what I wanted to talk to you, and both of you guys, I think, are in recovery.
Mhm.
That's what your podcast is all about.
Yes.
Same as ours. But I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind, and we can go all over the place. But I want to talk about recidivism, right?
You'll have to explain what that is.
So, because
Can we pause for 1 minute?
Yeah.
So before we jump into that, I would love for you guys to introduce yourself and your podcast, Kleymb Out, just so that our audience kind of knows where you're coming from, how we came to be here all together in the bus doing a pod swap. You're going to be on our podcast.
Pod swap.
We're going to be on your podcast next week. So can you just tell us a little bit about your podcast before we jump in?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I'm Joe Kley, and I'm a person in recovery, going on 4 years come February.
Good for you.
Yeah, buddy.
And, we've known each other now since 2020, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both in our use and had no idea. And I was going through all the shit that I had to go through in order to get on level ground, right?
Yeah.
We call it Kleymb Out of hell.
Yeah.
That's a good name.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is.
So we had to climb out, and I finally got to a place where I was in my treatment program, and it took me about a year to really drink the Kool-Aid, right? Like, I was stubborn set in my ways, and in my 40 years of life that I knew and how I knew myself to be. And I finally dove in, drank the Kool-Aid of my program, and when I did that, I started to get to know a different person, right? Like, I was opening up, I was talking about my feelings, I'm taking accountability for the things that I did instead of pointing the finger at, like, this is why I did what I did because you did this. And I started looking at myself and sitting in my own shit for a long time. And when I started to do that, then I started to realize that I'm becoming somebody different, and I want to get to know this person. And so I would open up in groups, and I would talk and share my story and tell them all the things that I'm dealing with and what I'm trying to do and try to become. And at the time, it was just me because my wife was incarcerated. And so I had the 2 girls, and it was up to me to get my shit together or lose my kids. And I really buckled down. And
do you mind if I ask, what was your drug of choice?
Everything and anything, really. But what really took control of me was heroin.
Smoking or shooting?
Shooting. I was IV user.
Okay.
Yep. And it started off with, legitimate pain prescription.
Of course it did.
And then they cut me off, and I couldn't get relief, and so I went to the streets. Started buying pills on the streets. Right,
$40 to $80 a pop.
Oh yeah. Well, I would get it in bulk, so I'd get a better deal.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I did that for too long, and then
good thing you had a large bank account to draw on, right?
I was functional, right, for quite a long time, and held a job, and I was doing well with my work, and I was getting promotions. As long as you're high. Yeah. And then it just, I got heroin introduced to me.
Because it's cheaper and it's easier?
It was cheaper, yeah. I was paying, so for my pain, I was paying $1,000 per procedure out of pocket for the radio frequency treatment, which is they go in this big old probe, they burn the nerve, it's supposed to grow back undamaged.
Well, so hold on a sec. So you're taking this prescription stuff for some sort of a pain, physical pain that you had developed. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was in a car accident back in 2003 on I-15. I was commuting from North Ogden.
I'm gonna just dive in, interrupt you real quick, because I've said this once. I've said it 1,000 times, and I've talked to people. This is a very common occurrence, and it's a created problem.
Yeah.
Right. They pharmaceutical industry, they want people like you, right? And then if you turn full circle, right, on your story, did Suboxone or Subutex ever come into the picture as well?
Only in recovery.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But you still took it in recovery. And from my perspective, right, we are trading one that is illegal, which is the heroin, right,
Mm-hmm.
for another that is legal, which is the Suboxone or the Subutex, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're still addicted, right, when you're doing one of those two. So your situation bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And it does you as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually part of a community advisory board for Wayne State University.
Okay.
And we're talking about that, right? Substance use disorder on top of opiate abuse.
Yeah.
Or chronic pain patients.
Yeah.
And when they put out a guideline back in 2016, a lot of the doctors took that as like a set of rules, right? A set of rules, a protocol that they needed to follow when it's just a guideline. And so that's when they started really cutting people off and stopping prescribing prescription pills. And some of the ones that they could have the higher dosages on, they'd keep prescribing them and keep them in their pain management, right? The ones that weren't as high dosage and not the big money makers, they would just cut off and send them out the door. And we're talking about that now with a bunch of doctors on this board, and to kind of give them a transitional period, right? To get them at least on Suboxone, because from that, then you can kind of taper off.
Well, you can, right?
Yeah.
That's what's, when the folks from the pharmaceutical industry got together and got in front of a body of decision makers for our country, right? That's how they sold Suboxone or Subutex, in the sense that there's gonna be some titration. We're gonna taper these people off. But you get to know, and you probably do know this already, and I know this because of where I am at Beecon, there's people that are taking that shit for decades with no end in sight at all, right?
And there's a few people to blame for that. Like
yeah,
you can
there
blame
is.
you can blame the patient who has addictive behaviors, right?
Yeah.
But you can also blame the doctors for not taking control of their medical plan.
Well, that doctor you're talking about, I'm going to go out on a wild tangent here and say that doctor probably spent some time in Barbados or some fancy place that pharmaceutical company sent him or her to get the training, right? Because they are getting incentivized. Those doctors are getting incentivized, right, to push this stuff, right, including the original set of pain pills that you got way back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
They're making money, and the part that bugs me is, well, you're a human being. We're all human beings. Those assholes have no desire to care about anything other than two words: cha-ching.
Yeah.
That's all they want. And they don't care about your life and what it did, right?
No. I have none of them reaching out to me and asking me how I'm doing today. I'll say that.
I can see Kirk chomping at the bit right there.
It's just, I don't know. They're creating a problem, and then they're saying, here,
There's
fix
solution.
it. They're trying to create a lifelong patient. And unfortunately, I don't know, fortunately, but fortunately, like he said, in the end, it's your choice. Like in the end, like if you're going to stay on it, it's hard to get off of, yes, but are you able to do it with enough willpower? Absolutely.
Okay, so you say in the end it's your choice. Let's go back. I'm gonna just get you to see if you can relate to this.
Okay.
Have either one of you ever seen a movie called Finding Nemo?
Yeah.
Great movie, right? There's a scene in the movie. They're actually in an AA meeting. You got the great white, forgot his name, Bruce or Brutus or whatever. He's up here, and he's everybody's protector, right? And all these other fishes down below know that if anybody messes with any of these fish, they got to go through him, and they're safe. Then one on the bottom, as they're figuring out a way to find Nemo, cuts its fin and does something no other fish has ever done. It starts to bleed. As soon as that blood hits that shark's nose, he loses his mind, and he's now trying to eat his friends, and it's hilarious. But that's kind of what happens when we're in our addiction, Yeah, we have a choice. We do. But do we? Because what's going on in our brain, in our midbrain, when we get that call, right? Do we really have, at that moment, have a choice? I'm going to say, dang, that's kind of iffy.
So it's a different choice, right? When you're on your tail end. When we first we made that choice to use the first time.
Yes.
Every time after that, it was not a choice. It was our bodies and our brains telling us that we needed that shit.
That's our life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you hear parents at Beecon, I hear parents all the time tell me, well, so-and-so, I don't understand how they're choosing that drug over me or their kids or their wife. They're choosing the drug over their family.
Yeah, they personalize it for sure.
And that's just not the way it is, because when we are in our addiction, that drug, whatever our drug of choice is, because of what's getting released in our midbrain,
it's hijacked your dopamine system,
and we think that's what our survival is. We have,
Yes.
and so it is a choice, but it's just like when the blood hits that shark's nose, he loses his mind.
Instinctive.
Yeah.
I want to say something about that though, because or like throw one more element into the mix, because all of what you are saying is true, and at the same time, I believe that there are moments of divine clarity where the spirit can override all that shit that's going on in the body. And when those moments occur, we have, I think, limited control over, if any at all. I think maybe we don't even have any, but I think there is something to prayer and spirituality and the people around us that are like those parents who are like, I don't understand. Like, I do think that there is an aspect of recovery that we don't have control over as much as we wish that we did. And that is those moments where the spirit comes in. And we all must have had moments similar where you look around and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And the spirit speaks. And then you might have some more access to choice.
Yeah. I'll share my experience with you.
Please.
So me and my wife decided, and this was after we'd already been looking for inpatient programs, right, for couples, and this doesn't exist. And we got to a point in our addiction where we...
Do you think it ought to exist?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay, that's a whole nother thing.
Absolutely,
Go on. But I think that's interesting.
Well, from a clinical perspective, there's a reason it doesn't exist. We can talk about that, you know, maybe on y'all's podcast or later on. But there's a reason, as a business owner that does this, there's a reason why we don't want to bring couples into. But you're right, it should exist. But anyways, go ahead.
So we got our prescription from our doctor for Suboxone, right? And we went out to Wendover and got a hotel and got rid of all of our shit there, and we had nothing left. And so this is when we're going to start taking our Suboxone. And we took it, and...
Wait. How long did you wait till after you took your shit the last time before you started? Day. That was your first mistake right there, because you're supposed to wait longer than that, but go ahead.
Well,
from a medical perspective.
I understand where you're coming from, but it was not a mistake.
Okay.
And so we were in the shower, right? We took one strip, and we're in there, and we're just going through our withdrawals, feeling like the demons just leaving our body.
Yeah.
And we got to a point where we just both sat on the floor of that shower, and she started praying. And she asked God for his help to get us through this. And at that point, like we finished our shower, we went back out, we took another strip, and our doctor advised us, right? Like, if we're not feeling the effects in a half hour after taking the first strip, then take another one. And we kept doing that every half hour. And she took a full strip, and I took half each time because I have a lower tolerance, but it's another story. And so we both laid on separate beds and wrapped ourselves in our blankets after that second strip and fell asleep. We woke up and we were done. The Suboxone had took over our receptors. The pain had gone away. We're no longer going through withdrawals, and we come home.
How long did you take the Suboxone?
So I was on my prescription for probably a year.
Did they raise the dose along the way?
No. We started out at 8.
Okay, that's not a lot.
It's not. So I started out at 8, and it was prescribed for like twice a day.
Okay. Have you been clean since that day?
Of heroin, yes.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that story.
Yeah.
I felt it.
Yeah. And then I couldn't get off meth right away, right? Like, and that took another probably 3 months to get off of meth. But then when I finally did get off of it, then I was on the verge of my PO like violating me and sending me back to jail and doing my sentence. And that was 25 years. And my kids would have gone into the system. And
how old were your kids at that time?
this was 2021. So what is that now? 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So one was 9 and one was 13, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you are there for them.
Yeah. Well, my PO seen something in me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I got there, I delivered a bad
This
UA.
is adult probation, right?
This is AP&P, Salt Lake County.
Okay.
Yeah. And I thought I was clean, right? Like I had stopped using meth the weekend before I went to see him, and it was like 3 days, and I figured I had enough time, and I deliver a UA and it comes back dirty, and he's just pissed, and like he starts tearing into me, and like maybe you're just putting more into your body that you don't even know what it is, and this, that, and the other, and just breaking me down. And he's like, I'm violating you. I don't want to see you again. And I was still going to my treatment program, and they UA'd me every time I went. And so then when I went there the next day, like I delivered a clean UA, and they report to the POs, right? And so for some reason, it wasn't enough time, and that's fine. But from that day on, I haven't delivered a bad UA ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
And it was actually like, so when I finally heard from my PO of a clean UA, it was on my grandma's birthday, March 5th.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great story.
It is a great story. And
how's your wife?
Yeah.
She's good. She's a substance use disorder counselor for Alpine treatment.
Yeah, we'll have another conversation about me stealing her. She's a sudsy, right?
She is a sudsy.
I love sudsies.
She actually just re-registered for the winter courses so she can do her math and then finish out her bachelor's.
So she wants to be a full-on therapist.
Yeah, and then she's going to continue on to her master's.
That's a fantastic story right there.
So before we forget or move on from this, can you say a little bit about a couples treatment and how you envision that?
A couples treatment center?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm basing this off of me and my wife, right?
Of course.
And the way that we recovered was individually, and we were both able to sit in our own shit for a minute. But I feel like that couples treatment program should be that same way, right? Like individual treatment programs for individuals, but then also come together and be able to share. And as soon as one's showing accountability for themselves, then, both of them need to do that in order to sit in the same room and sit in the same shit.
Well, what you're saying, at Beecon, because we have couples, they're going to spend, I don't know, 90 or more % of their time in treatment by themselves. Basically what you just said. And then a small percentage of their treatment, they're going to be in talking to a therapist at the same time, but they're doing their own individual, because it's your own stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that to me is I think there is this belief, this stigma that you can't stay together and get sober. And so that's what's interesting to me about it, is that it may not be like blatantly stated, but I think that is a general belief, that you can't stay together.
That's because it's a fact. It's not
it's not though. It's it's not a fact.
But listen,
it's rare.
Very, 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 very
But if
rare.
we changed the thinking about it, it would probably be more prevalent, because what we believe is possible becomes possible.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
However, how much difficulty did you personally go through, or you or me or anybody else, to get where we are, to be clean? When you're in a couple, it's always one is doing it and one isn't, and it's back and forth, and it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible, because obviously we're looking that it did happen, but if you're going to look at it from a numbers perspective, it's very difficult to get two people that are both active in their addiction to quit at the exact same time. That is almost never happens. That's why your story is so beautiful. But what you just described is incredibly rare.
Yes.
Because it's so difficult to do, right?
Yeah, but if you consider the fact that you have children together, so it's not just about getting sober, it's about you have like a common goal, like you have something on the line that you share, which is your children. That's going on all the time. And so I think it's interesting that motivation is underutilized, because I do think that it could be like a point of convergence where the two people could really be like, hey, I mean, you started out because you love each other. And so I'm not saying that I think that what Tony's saying isn't valid. Certainly, yes, it's hard to get those two people to sync up, but I do think that it is a stigma that could change, and I would love to see it change, because I think that marriage and family is undersupported in our culture in general.
Absolutely.
Yes, I know. I agree with that 100%, but I also understand it's very risky, because then if one person falls, they pull the other one.
And
in.
it's very,
not always,
but most
they can.
Most of the time, you got one pulling somebody down, but instead of pulling somebody up.
Yes.
And the one getting pulled down is usually successful. And what we tell people at Beecon, right? And I know that kids could be a good motivator, but we always tell people, and I have therapists that tell people, your motivator to get clean isn't your kids. It's got to be you.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's one of the big things that happened in my groups is I let them know I had the kids, and I'm trying to do everything. I had to do this through an IOP, right? Because I had to keep a full-time job, keep the roof over their heads and food in their bellies, and doing all of this, and by myself.
Because your wife's
my wife's incarcerated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was incarcerated for about 3 months until we could get her into an inpatient treatment center. And then that was still another 6 months down the road before she even got to come home.
Let me just say, right? And we've known each other for 30 minutes.
Has it been that long?
Damn, dude. You are a bona fide badass.
Thank you.
You really are.
It took
an
some work.
Amazing story.
But in the group, they would ask me, like, are you doing this for your kids? And I'm like, no.
Good for you.
Like, I'm doing this for me. And this is at the point where I drank the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
To the point where this stuff was coming out of my nose and I couldn't breathe. And so it was not for my kids. I'm doing it for me, because if I can get better and I can walk these streets alone without having to worry about my demons catching up to me, then my kids are going to benefit.
Well, it's like that thing when you're on a plane. And they tell you, the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself first. Because if you put it on your kid first, you're both going to die.
Yep.
Yes.
You have to take care of you first. Okay, so where is it? What's going on here? What is that?
He uses that
all the time. You got to, because you can't help somebody else if you're not good yourself.
Nope.
And so this is actually where we became friends. So the job that we were working at, we were both kind of on the tail end of our addictions.
And what was yours?
So same, I was opiates. That was
anything. Any you get your hand on?
I wouldn't say anything, because I'm not a big uppers person. I never was, because it just gives me too much anxiety, and I never really enjoyed it. And so I like to go out. I like to numb the pain and make it disappear and not deal with anything. And that's really where I had to learn, is my emotional intelligence was lacking because of that, because over 10 years I did that. And so we started working at this job, and I'll never forget the first time I met this guy.
And this is at the tail ends of both y'all's?
Yes, the tail end.
Okay.
And so I think I started this job in the end of 2019, early 2020. I think it was January 27th of 2020. And because I had been working on the road for 4.5 years, doing Walmarts. We did polished concrete, and we'd pull up their tile and make their concrete all beautiful.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but we'd be on the road 9 months out of the year, and then we'd come home for 3 months. Well, I could stay sober for 9 months when I would go out, but then I'd come home, and then I'd call my buddy and be like, hey, I'm in town, let's do it,
Yeah.
And so I would have these periods of sobriety, but I never knew how to stay like totally clean. And so I started the job with this guy, and this guy Joe right here. And the first day I met him, like, he wouldn't look at you in the eye. He wouldn't talk to you. He just came to work. He put his head down, never said a word. And big old dark circles under his eyes, and the guy who I thought was that person and the guy that I know now is two totally different people. And but so anyways, so like he slowly I started to see a change in him, and like the light come back in his eyes, and I'm like, what's this guy doing? Like, what's going on? And so, we would start to talk a little bit about it, and he'd be like, oh, this is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it. And
Now, did you guys never use together?
No.
never.
So you kind of knew he was using.
I could
Takes
tell,
more to know
obviously.
one, buddy.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
well, I was
no,
going to say you knew, but did you know he was using as well?
I did not.
yeah.
I had no idea this guy was using.
So I've always been a very isolated user, just
Yeah.
because the shame that comes with it.
Of course.
But I started to see this guy just start to piece it back together, and just it's almost like he was glowing. Like he would come to work and he was so happy, and I'm like, dude, what's going on with you, man? And he just started slowly telling me, and that's when I started to feel comfortable enough to tell him, hey, I understand what you're saying. And
Literally.
yes, and it just like seeing him do as well as he was doing, like lit the fire under me, and I was like, maybe I can do this. Because for the longest time, I was just like, I accepted. I was like, this is gonna be me. I'm able to stay clean, but as soon as I get around the wrong people, it's over. It's done.
The shark.
And yes, exactly. I taste the blood, and it's over. Game over. And he kept getting better, and he kept getting better, and I started to want that. I'm like, dude, what's going on, man? Like hook me up, whatever it is. And he just kept telling me, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. And just from who I thought he was the first day I saw him, and then who he was now, I couldn't even believe that that was the same person. And so I started latching on to that, and I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, and then I don't know, like we never did anything necessarily together. Like he never had to physically help me, or he never had to call me, but just literally watching this guy do what he did, it gave me that inner strength, and I was like, man, I can do this, and I started running with it.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like if you visualize, we've all barbecued with the coals.
mm-hmm.
If you take a coal, one of those ambers that's all with the other ones, and you set it off by itself, it's not going to last.
It'll die.
It'll die. But if you bring it together with the others, almost like light attracts light. Yeah. I'm listening to you share this. What I'm getting from this is his light is beginning to shine through. Mm-hmm. When you first see him, the light's not quite as bright.
It wasn't there. It wasn't even there. It was non-existent, and I'll never forget that, because just he was so different, and that's really what made me so curious, is because I'm like, dude, something changed.
Yeah,
like, something changed big time, and I don't know. Ever since then, I've kind of followed him. Like, he left the place we were working, and he got his CDL, and he kept telling me to come over, and I was like, oh, because initially I'd have to take a pay cut, and I didn't want to do it, but then eventually he got me to come over, and I don't know. I just always knew, like, once I latched onto that, I was like, we're going to do something together. And then one day he's like, hey, we should do a podcast. And I was like, nah, like, really? And I was like, okay, I'll buy the mics, And he's like, okay. So we got the mics, and he's like, okay, I'm going to come over. We're going to set them up. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, come over. I was thinking we're just going to set them up, test them.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, let's make an episode. And I'm like, what? Like, you serious? And bam. And we took off.
I love it.
And ever since then, like, every Sunday, I know I got to show up for this guy. I mean, not obviously for myself, but I'm one of those people who is better at doing things for others than myself. I see more value in it, and I know that may be a character flaw, and I'm changing that, but I don't know. It worked for me.
I mean, I suppose some might see that as a character flaw.
Yeah, because you should think about yourself.
You should, but at the same time, I was just talking about this with a guy at the gym this morning, right? We're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to love one another, right? Seriously.
Yeah.
We're supposed to. I mean, who did Jesus hang out with when he walked this planet?
The weak.
Yeah, the lowly. The addicted people. I mean, that's the people that nobody wanted anything else to do with. And so I think it's inherently in good people, we desire to serve others.
Yeah.
And the fun thing, right, sometimes we do it when we don't even know we're doing it by leading by that example. I guarantee you, right, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to suggest to you that every morning that you would wake up knowing that you were going to see someone else at work, you didn't wake up saying, hey, I'm going to go to work to set an example so somebody would see what I was doing. You were just doing you. And in the process, he was serving you.
Yeah.
Right? That is magic.
Yes. No, I liken it to like a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't tell you what to do. A lighthouse doesn't. All it does is stand there and shine, and it lets you know, okay, this is where you're at. And I don't know.
He doesn't even know what he just said, does he? No, that's fun. Because we talk about the lighthouse.
You guys are just swapping metaphors right now. It's so cute.
Well, I mean, we talk about the lighthouse. I mean, imagine, right? For Beacon of Light is the name of this podcast, right? Our Taco Tuesdays with Tony. I mean, but
I love tacos.
About it.
I love tacos.
I do too. But I mean, so when I was in the Navy, or even say when you're in the desert, right? It's dark time, it's cold, you're out of energy. If you figure this, right? And then you come over that, and then way off in the distance, you see that beacon of light. I'm telling you right now, you got a burst of energy because you now have hope.
Yeah. That's this guy right here.
I know. You were his beacon of light. And you didn't even know it, did you?
We shine brighter together.
Yeah.
Those two, remember we just talked about the two barbecue
That's
coals. When you bring them together, they're brighter together and they last longer. What a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just have to point out this lovely thing that has happened as you guys are all speaking, because we were talking earlier about, did I do it for myself or did I do it for my kids? And there's this tendency that we have in our brains as we're trying to make sense of things to say it has to be either this or this. And what I practice is it's this and this. So I did it for myself and I did it for my kids. You actually can't separate the two, I would say. You can't, there's no way that you can separate, I can't as a mother separate what I do for myself from what is happening for and with my children. So I did it for them and I did it for myself, and it kind of just like goes in a circle. Like something that was really clear to me when I got sober, my oldest daughter was 2 years old, and I looked at her and I thought, how much more do you have to lose before you'll be willing to change? And our lives, the trajectory of our souls are intertwined as mother and daughter. I actually can't separate what is good for me from what is good for her. I'm going to have an effect on her no matter what I do. And towards the end of my drinking, I wanted my life to end. That's what I thought would be best for her. I thought, if this is me, if this is all I can do, then she will be better off without me. And that's what I really believed. And what I have learned since and continue to learn is that there's actually no separating that. Like if I had ended my life, and if that had been the end of my drinking, if I had done what I thought was the solution, that would have affected her too. Like there's no way out of that relationship. Yeah. Then she would have to deal with a mother who died of alcoholism, and that would be what I gave her. And instead, I've given her something completely different. Like she got married last summer, and I officiated her wedding in the mountains. Awesome. Yes. And she's doing fantastic, and we are dear, dear friends. We talk all the time.
So how long have you been sober?
It'll be 20 years in May.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And
I'm glad you chose the different path.
Oh my gosh.
Than taking your own life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a waste that would have been.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Well, and I got to about that same point, right? Like there was a time where I had my gun sitting in my lap, drove out to Wendover and sitting in my car and had it all planned out. I was just going to off myself. And I even wrote letters to my daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have them. I haven't pulled them out since. I haven't been brave enough yet.
Yeah, I had the 9mm sitting in the driver's side of my pickup truck.
Yeah.
Right?
So scary.
I mean, giving it some real serious thought.
Yeah.
Right? So now...
Wait, I want to know where the letters are.
Oh, they're probably in a lockbox somewhere, aren't they?
They're in my folder, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a notebook full of my notes and journals and those letters.
I predict that one day you'll be ready to look at those.
Yeah.
Or one day your kids will be ready to look at those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that's another reason why we podcast, right? Is because even if our kids aren't ready to listen to our story or understand us, right? It'll be there for them later, whenever they are ready.
Mm-hmm.
And there's somebody that's going to listen to this podcast that's ready.
Yeah.
Right. Which I want to now circle back to the first thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the recidivism rate.
That big word.
Right. That I had to actually say it like recidivism. It's a hard word to say, but we have it. Right. Now, as a facility owner, I have not had anybody, not one time, from any organization come to me and say to me, hey, what is your success rate? What is your, how many people that have gone through your program and have been successful? It's never happened, right? So we know what the recidivism rate is for people getting reincarcerated. So say your wife, when she went to jail and or prison, we know those numbers.
Isn't that 1 in 4?
Well, I know that the state of Utah is 46%.
Oh my God.
Can we define recidivism for everyone?
Okay, so recidivism is the word that is associated with the rate in which people are relapsing.
Okay.
Okay, now they can calculate those numbers on the people that are getting arrested again. That's a no-brainer. Everybody knows, they should if they don't, that the vast majority of the individuals using drugs and or alcohol that are addicted don't even get into treatment. Or there's a lot of those folks that have died, right? So let's just talk about the folks that have actually gone into a residential or an outpatient, which is what we do at Beecon, right? Nobody's asking us as owners, at least they haven't asked me in the 5+ years I've been doing this. And the reason they're not asking me is because nobody calculates it. Because once you complete, here's one for you, right? Wherever you went for treatment, right? You have no idea what I'm about to ask you, but I think I already know the answer. Has anybody come to you and asked you, hey, are you clean? With any level of regularity?
In my program or now?
Now.
I actually ran into one of the counselors doing my volunteer work for USAR.
Good. But so where I'm going with this is it's very difficult for us to calculate the recidivism rate for people that are relapsing on drugs and or alcohol because nobody knows.
But there is no follow-up for any treatment program.
There actually is for one.
Okay.
I know one, right? And the reason there is no follow-up is because that shit cost me money, right? It cost somebody from my staff, just in case I had 8 people that have graduated from my program that my staff could not get a hold of. Now, as an owner of a facility, it's costing me money to have somebody from my facility reach out to these people. But we had 8 that we could not get a hold of. So Christmas Eve, I know you're going to be home, right? I'm knocking on your door. Christmas Eve, because I know you're going to be there. And I was really worried about this. Are they going to get ticked off at me? But they weren't. They were
happy to see
oh my
you.
Gosh.
Somebody actually cares. And
it was so much fun. There were tears of joy because I was on their door on Christmas Eve, right? Hey, how are you? Right? I want to know. But I also need to gather the information so I can show anybody, here's our success rate. And for everybody that can hear me, Beecon Recovery's recidivism rate is 23%, meaning 23 minus 100, what does that get you, 77? So 77% of our folks have not relapsed. And I still have 4 people I still can't get a hold of. So that number might go down below, which means I think we're going to end up at around 80%.
It's like a B-. That's good.
Considering that the national average is an F-.
Oh, wow.
I'll take it. I mean, we don't know the actual number of people that are relapsing off of drugs and alcohol. Once again, we've discussed, nobody's asking me.
Yeah.
And as you have said, there isn't a facility on planet Earth that I'm aware of, minus this one, that has taken the time and the effort to reach out to the people that have graduated and saying, hey, what's up with you? I'm even having them give me every once a quarter, you fill out this little 20-second questionnaire, and I'll give you a $25 gift card. Now, I know $25 is not a lot, but it's better than nothing.
Yes.
All you got to do is take 10, 15, 20 seconds, answer these questions, and I'll send you a $25 gift card from any one of any several places. If there's something that is not on that list of cards that are available to you, tell me, and I'll go out and get it. It's vital that we understand who is relapsing, because the problem with the relapse now, the recidivism, the people that are relapsing, is now the people are dying.
You know, what I'm thinking as you're describing this is, from what I've seen, watching how treatment kind of unfolds, is a lot of times they just come back. I know many, many people who just come back through the program, or who, I have many, many friends who, they make the rounds, and all the treatment centers know each other, and they're like, oh, well, you can't go here, you can go here. Yeah. And so I think there's just this, and this is kind of like what I was speaking about earlier with the couples thing. What we believe, what we expect to happen will happen. Mm-hmm. And so we believe and expect that people are going to cycle back through treatment. And they do. I mean, I would say that, I don't know very many people who share my story where they got sober and they stayed sober.
Doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often.
Well, the thing is, though, they do come back. And
that's money.
I'm an owner of a facility, and I want people
money.
to come to my facility because it's money, okay? But I don't want people coming back. But the problem with what Sarah just said, if we're lucky, they're coming back. But more oftentimes than not,
they never make it back.
They're going to a dirt grave because of the fentanyl that's out there, right?
My phone contact list is full of people who have passed away. Like, being in this community for so long, I can scroll through, and on every single page, there's somebody who's passed away.
And that's what that's why we're here. Yes. Right. So we can have conversations about real problems. This is not a sugarcoat podcast. And if, once again, I always say this, usually I say at the beginning, but if anybody out there is listening to what I'm saying right now and they want to tell me I'm full of shit, let's talk. Yeah. Tell me I'm wrong. But what Sarah just said is right. People, and I know this, right? Your story is incredibly unique, and so is yours, and so is hers, and so is mine. I don't know how. It's over 30 years. It's been a minute for me. Yeah. Right? And I don't say that in a braggadocious way. I'm saying that it's possible. There is another way. And that way is the light that you saw in you. Mm-hmm. That's the way. Yeah. Right? And now you're out there leading the charge. Let's have conversations about this that is plaguing. Look, this drug addiction issue that we have, there is, in my opinion, there is no greater pandemic or planned-demic on planet Earth. Yeah. It is by far and away the most problematic thing. And it's a thing that people like us are talking about. But when we walk out of Harvey, it's not a conversation that's being had.
A lot of people try to ignore it. They try to not talk about it.
Well, it's easier, don't you think?
Well, and I think they think that drug addicts deserve it.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a choice. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get stuck on that. And unless you've been there, you don't understand. And that's why it's important for us to go out there and be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what can we help you with? What kind of resources? And I don't know, just like you said, you knocked on their doors on Christmas Eve. Yeah. And how incredibly moved they were that somebody gives a shit.
I can't even tell. And I was worried. On the first one, I'm thinking, what am I walking into?
I was worried too when you told me you were doing that. I was
really?
Yeah.
Well, seriously, I mean, I haven't seen these guys.
The answer's always no if you don't ask.
What's that?
The answer's always no if you don't ask.
Right.
So you go into that door and them answering and being receptive to you, that can show you what kind of path is ahead for you, right?
Let me tell you, the first guy, I knocked on his door, and he about tackled me. Right?
Yeah.
It was.
I can feel that you care, and I haven't ran into very many treatment center owners.
Yeah.
That have this kind of emotion for the people that they're treating.
They're human beings.
Mm-hmm. We are, yes.
We are. And it, as a medic in the Army, I used to be the one to take these dead bodies that I had just got through working on down to our cooler, right? And their blood is still on the floor upstairs, and I'm downstairs in our cooler, just me and this dead, stiff body, and I would unzip the bags, and I would pry them open. I know this sounds crazy, but they were just on this planet, and is their spirit still here? Give me something, right? I didn't know what was happening at the time, but what I was doing was praying over this stiff body to stop that death, okay? Because what we don't realize and what we don't think about as a society is what you just described, what Sarah described. There are other people involved in the mix other than the person with the addiction. They have wives, they have kids, right? And it's those kids. There's a scripture someplace, I don't know where it is, but God talking about jacking with them kids. You'd be better off to what did he say? Strap a rope around your neck and tie it to an anvil and throw the anvil over. Don't mess with those little kids, right? The babies, right?
They're innocent.
They are.
You know, they haven't been taught how to lie and cheat.
But they are taught how to do what mom and dad do. If mom and dad don't make a change,
it's generational.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's by design, right? Which is why I don't want to pick on you, right?
Pick on me. That's what I'm here for.
That story, right, of you and your wife in the shower. And I want to ask you, and if I'm too personal, tell me, but when she started praying, can you describe to me what you felt when she started praying?
I felt peace.
It's
this
a shift,
overwhelming feeling of peace come over me. And it was almost like a curtain, like a shield of protection. And when that water came off and we walked out, put our feet on the tile floor and walked out to them beds, I felt like anything was possible.
So that speaks to what you said, Sarah, right? Of bringing anything is possible when we bring that spirit, because that's what that was.
Yeah.
That was the spirit of, God. They came into the room, and it was an instant, right?
Yeah.
When could you say that? Could you say that when you brought that spirituality into it, right? When she started praying, it almost happened. Is that about right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my mom always used to tell me that when the second coming happens, right? Any and everybody will be forced to a knee.
Every knee will bow.
And they cannot deny him.
Nope.
And that was my moment of that. That was my second coming. This was my second chance and my second opportunity to walk this earth alone and to know that he's with me.
And he always has been with you and always will be with you. And you, and you, and you. And it's my mission in this life to share that with people, right? He's never going to leave, never has, and he never will, right? I know that we've had some tough times, right? Everybody's had some tough times, but look at you. You're sitting right here in front of me, breathing and blinking, right? You've had some hard times, right?
Yes, sir.
You have had some hard times. We've all had hard times. And yet, here we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Telling our stories, right? And this is a great little dynamic duo right here, right?
Yeah, I always felt that way when I met that guy. Like once I knew who he was, like I just felt like I'm gonna do something with him. I don't know what it was.
Did you have a similar experience where you said, "This is it, no more"?
Mine, I don't know. Like I would have periods. Like I'd go 3 months,
9 months,
and then 6 months, and then some. Yeah,
yeah.
And then it would be like 1 week, and then the guilt would come. But I do remember a time in specific when I was in my basement and I was just bawling my eyes out, and I was saying like,
wait, to who?
I was like, if there is a God right now,
I love it.
Then release me from this. Like take these withdrawal pains away from me, because that's what was happening. I was sitting on there, I was withdrawn, and I was just in tears, and I couldn't stop. And I just, I don't know. Like you said, there's a peace that comes with it, and but I can't say that I had a moment with him where it was just like, because in that situation it didn't work out where I was just done. Because like I said, I never thought I could be done. I just always thought that I'm gonna be a functioning user. I'm gonna do it. I'm still gonna pay my bills. I'm never gonna get ahead, but I'm never gonna fall behind, because that's just who I was at the time. And until I really found the belief after seeing him do it, that I was like, okay, I can do this.
And how does that make you feel?
Feels great. Like I did this for me, and if it helps anybody else along the way, then I'm doing my part, right?
Well, I mean, in essence, you were his lighthouse.
Yeah.
Well, look at the ripple effect.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of the ripple effect, the podcast, you guys have been going for 4 years? Is that how long you've been recording?
No.
How long?
It's been a little over 2. I
Oh,
think
okay.
it was like October 17th-ish when we had our first 2022. Yeah. So yeah, we have like over 100 episodes. But not only that, like what I love to do is you can go back and listen to this one, and then I can fast forward a year later. I can hear the progress.
Yeah.
I can hear what we talk about, and I can just see the progress. Like if anything, if nobody ever listened to it, like it's almost like a journal and staples that I'm like, okay, I'm still constantly moving forward. And then little stuff like this happens where then we're like, okay, we're going to go over here. And it's magic how it all pieces together.
Yeah.
I'm definitely proud of him and the growth that he's experienced.
And I can't say for sure, but I kind of get the feeling he feels the same way about you. I mean, it's not very obvious, but
I love your faith in the process.
Yeah.
I love your faith in the consistency. I too did that with a podcast with the Own It SLC for a couple years, and every Sunday, no matter what, like just like that commitment to the creative process, and like trusting, like I'm going to create this. I don't really know what it's for, but what I have experienced is that even 10 years down the road, some of the stuff that I was devoted to creatively is still doing stuff. Like it's still showing me what it was for. And so I love that you trust that. Like you don't have to know why you're creating what you're creating, but it comes from the heart, and it will amaze you, I bet, if you stay with it, what it turns into or what it reveals. Because I wrote a body of work from 2012 to 2015 called Chrysalis Break that is still doing its job now 10 years later. Like it's still showing me like, this is why you did that. And I didn't know. I just was like losing my soul. This was, I think I was like 7 years sober. I just had my 3rd kid. All my friends relapsed that year. Like all my friends relapsed that year. So I'd go to meetings and all my friends weren't there. I have this new baby and I'm just like lonely as fuck.
That's scary too, having a baby.
Yeah. Like, so I just started writing.
A 5-month-old. And it's just crazy how much it changes you.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so much more than you ever expect it to be. Like I look at that when I look at him and I'm like, okay, now he's counting on me. And exactly like you said, that innocence when they look at you and they're looking at you like you're the best person on the planet. And it's just like, okay, this is real. Like I can no longer, be selfish like that. And it's been such a beautiful experience because it's an experience I never thought I'd have. And
back in the day.
Yeah. No, I never thought. Like, and not only that, my sweetheart, she wasn't even supposed to be able to conceive. And so like I said, it's magic. Like how it all happened.
Congratulations.
Yes. No,
that's
thank
awesome.
you.
That's a beautiful teacher.
It was.
Yes.
It
was.
And
people say that God moves in mysterious ways, and I don't believe there's a mystery at all.
Yeah.
I don't. And if what we can do as we have these conversations, I know this is going to sound a little bit dramatic, but I believe this. If just one person gets to hear your words, what we are talking about, if just one person says, hey, you know what? He did this. He was stuck in his addiction, right? And look at him, right? Look at him.
It's possible.
It is possible.
Yeah. I was deep in a hole. Like, I mean, when you listen to Alice in Chains,
Yeah.
and, you know,
Yeah.
down in a hole,
Mm-hmm.
that was where I was, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but for me, it's a very difficult place to describe. It's hopeless.
It is.
It is.
Lonely.
It's lonely. It's hopeless. It's dark. Sometimes I would feel like I was having a heart attack, kind of in a weird way, and it's just because you're isolated. At least I was.
Yeah.
And you're all by yourself. But what I found for me, which is the exact same thing that your wife did, every single time I was in that space, I would, well, hit my knees, right? Because that's never going to stop. And every single time I would ask, I would get that relief, the exact same relief. For me, it was almost like the first time I experienced what you and your wife experienced. It was almost like there was a little fairy, right? And she was like above my head, and she poured pixie dust. Did you say pixie dust?
Yeah.
Because I thought
Jinx.
But really, because that's what it felt
Yeah.
like. And I could feel it hit my head, and it rolled like down my body. And that, from the time it hit my head till the time it hit my toe, was probably, I don't know, a second. But because I was afraid before she did that, or whatever it happened. But as soon as that was over, like you, feeling that, I don't know, like a sense of relief, a comfort, safety, it's good, whatever it is, peace. Yes, I now knew, like you knew, okay, I got this. Nothing to be afraid of, because I'm not alone. Correct?
Even in the physical form, I was walking the streets alone, right?
Yeah.
But there's always something else with me, something else guiding me. And in my recovery, and I've told this guy 100 times, like, we're not trying to control what happens in the future, right? Like, what we're doing is following our recovery journey, and that journey is building itself along the way. And that's the path we're on.
Well,
we're not going down a fork in the road.
Nope.
We're going down the middle.
You are. And, the thing is, as human beings, we do, present company included, we get stuck in the past, or we get stuck in the future. And both of those, we can't control what happened in the past, and we damn sure can't control what's going to happen in the future. So what we get to do is live in the present, right here and right now, right? Yeah. And that's the easy button, but at the same time,
it's not easy.
Because we get stuck in our heads, right? But once again, hate to beat a dead horse, but there's always one answer, and that's to do what your wife did when she was in the shower.
Yeah. And I was 41 before I learned how to pray. I'm 45 today.
Me too.
Yeah.
High five. So you know what? No, what's funny? So we can't.
Yeah.
We can't necessarily predict the future, but we can plan for it a little bit. And Tony and I plan to come and be guests on your podcast next weekend, right?
Yeah.
Next weekend.
Oh.
Yeah. He's going to say that's not going to work for me, but he's just kidding.
All right. We can arrange it.
We have to. No, I'm not. I'm doing some things.
Has a date.
No, I'm doing some. I'm actually giving some service to something known as impact training. I've completed the impact training, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to staff one of those next weekend. They're Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and that's going to be some long, beautiful days of people that are searching, right, for some answers. And so, I'm literally going to have to reschedule that.
It's on Sunday.
We'll make it work.
Can you come on Sunday?
Wait, is it on Sunday?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to reschedule.
We'll make it work.
No, Sunday's good. I'm in. That's right. You said that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So yes, never mind.
So
no rescheduling.
I would love to wrap and kind of pick up maybe some of these threads next weekend on Sunday. and tell you guys thank you so much for coming and for your openness. And is there anything you would like to say before we wrap up? Anything you guys got in the works besides every Sunday recording your podcast?
So we just had a bunch of guests on.
Nice.
We had Kley from, we were at the
Kley from Tosa.
gratitude dinner. Yeah.
Nice. Yes, he's
And
great. I love him.
I had Kley on, and then we had Manny Lopez on.
And you had Mindy Vincent.
Mindy Vincent came
Yeah.
on. Yeah, we've had a lot of people like Tiffany Nacarado.
Can I tell you a little story about Mindy Vincent real quick?
Absolutely.
So when she was getting sober, I had a 1-year chip that I carried on my keychain that I drilled a hole in and carried it around for that first year. And I gave it to her when I met her as she was starting her journey, and she carried it for a long, long time.
I might have to ask her to see it.
You should. I think she still has it.
I'm sure she does.
I think she still has it, but like she and I have like a bond. I really love her.
Yeah.
So when I saw that she was on, I actually listened to that episode. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, it's the best way to keep it is to give it away.
Absolutely.
That's what Kley said when he was on our podcast. But
yeah, Kley does a lot.
He does.
Yeah.
He speaks very well.
Yeah.
And we were lucky to have him. So
yeah, he's fun. Cool. Anyone else? Anyone else you got?
So as human beings, we communicate 3 ways at the exact same time. Verbally, which is about 7%, body language, which is about 43%, and energy, which is a whopping 50%. Now, verbal and body language, we can be deceitful, but energy doesn't lie. And let me just tell you, your energy, your frequency, you both resonate with a very high frequency.
Yes.
Has anybody ever said this to you?
We already know this.
Well, what I'm doing is letting you know that your vibration is, you have a high vibration. Both of you do. And I can also tell you that both of you did not have a high vibration when you were stuck in your addictions.
Nope.
It is dull.
The goal is to stay on this high frequency.
Yes.
Yep.
Keep showing up.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
It's been great.
You.
Yeah.
Look forward to next week.
Next Sunday.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool beans. All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right.